long before history, before memory, before even the whisper of civilization. The world burned. Mountains erupted, seas boiled, and the sky rained fire. In that endless storm, life was not born gently. It fought its way into existence. From chaos came breath. From darkness came the first spark of awareness. This was not yet humanity as we know it. Only fragile creatures learning what it means to endure. The earth was their cradle, but also their executioner. And every sunrise was not a blessing, but a battle. This was the world before fire. The world roared beneath a bleeding sky. Volcanoes screamed in anger, tearing mountains apart, their molten veins glowing through the night like the pulse of gods. Rivers hissed with boiling water. The air shimmered with heat and fear. Lightning split the clouds, carving white scars through the heavens. And below, small silhouettes moved through the ash, barefoot, trembling, yet alive. They were not yet masters of their world, only witnesses. Thunder spoke louder than thought. Hunger was their teacher. They followed the rhythm of beasts, learned the pattern of stars that blinked faintly through smoke. When the storms came, they pressed against stone walls, shivering, waiting, praying to forces they could not name. When the beasts passed, they crept out, not to conquer, but simply to survive another dawn. The nights were vast and merciless. Without fire, darkness was a living thing, wrapping its arms around their fragile bodies, breathing fear into their bones. The stars were cold companions, and every sound in the night could be death. Yet even then, they looked up. Something within them refused to crawl forever. They began to mark the stone. Shapes, hands, spirals, beasts. A language older than words, an instinct to remember what should not be forgotten. Every carving was a rebellion against oblivion. Every breath was defiance. Then came a dawn unlike any before. The storm faded, the earth quieted. From the east, the first golden light broke through the clouds. It touched their faces, warm, gentle, alive. They reached toward it, trembling as if it were a god. For the first time, light was not destruction. It was hope. Steam rose from rivers. Ash cooled into fertile soil. The wind carried the scent of rebirth. And in that stillness, humanity took its first true breath. The world was no longer just survival. It had become a beginning. Every civilization that came after, every language, every dream, was built on that single moment. When a trembling creature looked at the sun and realized it could live.
Survival was never granted. It was earned, fought for, paid in blood.
When the storms quieted and the earth cooled, the hunger began. The world was vast, but mercy was rare. Every movement, every breath, every sound could mean life or death. The air carried both promise and peril. Predators stalked through the mist, silent and unseen. And humanity, fragile, barefoot, trembling, learned to fight not against the world, but within it. They were no longer creatures of chaos. They were becoming hunters of destiny. The morning fog hung thick across the valley. A small group of figures crept through the grass, their breath visible in the cold air. A herd of beasts grazed near the river, massive and powerful. The hunters moved in silence, rhythm, instinct, unity. A signal, a heartbeat. Then the charge. Spears flew, the earth trembled. A roar split the sky as the beast fell, its blood steaming against the frost. For a moment all was still. Then came the cries of victory. They knelt beside their fallen prey, hands pressed to its warm skin, not in cruelty but in reverence. They thanked the spirit of the creature, for in its death they would live. This was the first prayer of humankind, not to gods above, but to the life that sustained them below. They returned home with meat and hide, their bodies weary, their hearts alive. Children ran to greet them as smoke curled from distant fires. Laughter mixed with the scent of roasting flesh.
Their eyes are the
In this
stars.
moment, life was not just survival, it was celebration. But even celebration carried danger. As the night deepened, wolves gathered at the edge of the firelight. Thunder rolled across the mountains, and rain began to fall. The tribe huddled close, their single fire flickering weakly against the storm. A man struck two stones together, once, twice, again. A spark leapt, and for the first time, fire was born not from heaven, but from human hands. The tribe gasped as light bloomed in the dark, flickering orange and gold. The warmth touched their faces, and they wept, not in fear, but in awe. The fire crackled, and shadows danced across the cave walls. Children reached toward it, fingers trembling as if touching the divine. Through the storm, they guarded it. When the wind howled, they covered it with their hands. When the rain fell, they sheltered it beneath stone. The flame shivered, but it did not die. It endured, just as they did. By dawn, the storm had passed. Smoke rose into a silver sky. The valley shimmered with dew, and the tribe gathered around the embers. They warmed their hands, their hearts, their spirits. And in that fragile morning light, humanity understood something sacred. Life was not given. It was kept, fiercely, stubbornly, together. They began to build with purpose. Hands shaped flint into sharper blades. Roots were gathered, meat dried, memories shared. For the first time, the future existed. They were no longer wanderers. They were a people. Night came again, but darkness no longer ruled them. The fire burned steady and proud, a heartbeat of gold against the black. Wolves still howled, but now they stood at the edge of light, unwelcome guests at the birth of civilization. Every ember that burns today, in hearth, in heart, in spirit, is a reflection of that first flame. Born from hunger, shaped by fear, and carried by hands that refused to let the light die. This was not merely survival. It was the beginning of courage. There was a time when the world belonged to giants. When the earth shook beneath the weight of beasts, and humanity, small, fragile, defiant, walked among titans. Every sunrise was danger, every breath uncertain. They had endured chaos and hunger, but now came a greater test. The moment they learned to command the flame. This was the age of beasts and fire. The plains stretched beneath dark clouds, thunder rolling through the grass like drums of war. Herds of mammoths moved across the horizon, their roars echoing through the wind. Hunters watched from the hills, quiet, focused, fearless. They no longer fled, they hunted. A single cry broke the silence. They charged, spears lifted, hearts burning with courage. Dust rose, the ground shook. When the beast fell, silence claimed the valley. They bowed their heads, hands on warm hide, honoring life that gave them strength to live. That night, fire burned bright against the dark. Its glow danced on the cave walls, and with trembling hands they painted their story. The beast, the hunt, the light. A shaman whispered to the flames, like speaking to gods. Children stared, wide-eyed, seeing for the first time the reflection of humanity in the fire's glow. Flames crackled. Shadows moved like ancient spirits. Each spark leapt upward, carrying a dream. Fire was no longer gift or fear. It was friend. It warmed them, guarded them, gave them hope. Through its light they saw courage. Through its warmth they learned belonging. Seasons passed. The tribe grew strong. They carried torches across plains and rivers, lighting paths for others to follow. Wherever the fire went, life endured. When storms struck, they rebuilt. When darkness came, they held the flame high. The beasts watched from afar, knowing their age was ending. Humanity had claimed something divine. Imagination. The power to see beyond fear. To create and to remember. Music rose beside the fire. Drums echoed through the night. Voices chanting to the rhythm of survival. They sang not for mercy, but for life itself. Embers drifted upward like new stars. The shaman whispered, "The fire will remember your names." And they believed. For in that glow, they found immortality. The fire carried their spirit through generations. Every story, every song, every spark of hope was born in that same light. The beasts had ruled the land, but fire ruled the soul. And from its warmth, humanity rose. Not as prey, but as creators. The age of beasts had ended. The age of fire had begun. Morning came gentle over the new world, not with thunder or fear, but with the mist of green valleys. Smoke curled above small fires. Voices rose, calm, human, alive. After the age of beasts and the age of fire, something greater was being born. The age of us. Simple shelters stood beside rivers and trees. Children laughed, chasing birds through tall grass. Hands once made for war were now for shaping, weaving, healing. The land no longer ruled them. They began to shape it back. Around the fire they gathered. Drums beat like the heart of the tribe. Flutes sang through the air, and stories passed from old to young. So the memory of darkness would never fade. For the first time, the night was not an enemy. It was home. They painted more than beasts. They painted themselves. Lines and symbols appeared on stone.
Long ago, the sky
Circles for the sun,
and the earth drank
waves
the blood of
for the river,
unworthy.
stars for the sky. Grunts became words. Words became meaning. Mothers could soothe. Elders could teach.
Hurry, child, we must reach
And
the
leaders
cave.
could guide with wisdom
Mother,
instead
the
of
wind is too
fear.
strong. I am afraid. Mama, I am
Every hand found purpose. One carved tools. One prepared hides.
Sleep now, little one.
One guarded the young.
The fire keeps us safe from the shadows.
They learned to plan beyond the next sunrise. They built, traded, shared. This was no longer survival. It was life. When storms struck, they gathered closer. Shelters merged. Flames burned higher. Strength was not in a single warrior anymore, but in many hearts standing together. Unity became their fire. When the earth called them onward, they moved as one, carrying embers in stone bowls, songs in their memory, and children who would never know the first fear. Their footprints braided through the mud, a trail of hope stretching across the world. From the cliffs, they saw forests and mountains ahead. And instead of fear, they felt wonder. The world was no longer a threat. It was a promise. At night, elders raised their eyes to the stars. They traced the patterns of the sky, teaching the young when to travel, when to rest, when to plant. Knowledge no longer died. It lived in voices and stories. Fires glowed like constellations on the earth. Laughter echoed through the dark. And in that warmth, humanity discovered something sacred. That survival was never meant to be alone. They had found each other. And together, they had found the beginning of belonging. The warmth did not last. The sun dimmed, and the breath of the earth turned cold. Snow came and did not leave. It buried the paths, silenced the rivers, and wrapped the world in white. The land that once gave freely now demanded strength. The tribe moved through the storm, hides pulled tight, heads bowed. Their fire, once proud, now a trembling spark. Breath froze mid-air. Children pulled on bone sleds. Above them, the sky was steel. Beneath, the world unyielding. But they did not stop. To stop was to vanish. Hunger followed them like a shadow. The herds were gone. Sometimes they found only bones, white shapes half buried in snow. They learned silence, patience, endurance. Then eyes appeared in the dark. Wolves, thin and desperate. Spears flashed. A cry broke the wind. Blood steamed on the ground, then froze. The tribe survived another night, and the fire lived one day more. They carved shelters of snow, huddled close around the ember. Outside, the storm screamed. Inside, an elder whispered, "The cold cannot kill the fire if the fire lives within us." Days blurred into white. They carried the ember in bowls of bone, a light wrapped in hope. The world erased their footprints, but not their will. A river betrayed them. Ice cracked. A hunter fell through. They pulled him out, rubbed warmth into his hands until life returned. In that act, they learned to survive is to hold each other. The sky sometimes remembered mercy. Colors, green, violet, gold, danced across the black. Children pointed, elders smiled. Even in the cold, beauty endured. Time passed. No one spoke of the end, only of after. After the snow, after the thaw, after we survive. Hope became their ritual. Then, one morning, water sang again. Drips echoed through silence. The sun lingered longer. Ice cracked with release, and faces lifted toward pale light. They had endured. Rivers moved. Children touched flowing water, laughed. Birds returned. And when a small sprout broke the thawing mud, they wept. That green leaf meant the world forgave them. Fires burned higher, no longer against death, but for life. Smoke curled into blue sky, and the smell of food filled the air. Elders told the young, "Never forget the winter that tried to erase us." They spoke not of suffering, but of proof. Proof that humans could bend without breaking, freeze without fading, love without surrender. As dusk fell over the valley reborn, an old man rose beside the fire. He looked at his people, scarred, thin, alive, and said quietly, "We stayed." The ice had tried to erase them, but they stayed. They passed the ember hand to hand, night to morning, generation to generation. Because they stayed, the story of humanity did not end in snow. It began again in sunlight. The snow melted, and the world breathed again. From the silence of ice came rivers reborn, mountains glowing under gold, and valleys whispering the first song of life. The tribe stepped out from their caves, faces touched by warmth they thought they'd never feel again. Every breath was a miracle. Every sunrise, a promise that the long night was over. They walked through soft ground where green returned. Children ran laughing through the mist, their small hands catching sunlight for the first time. Elders followed slowly, eyes shining with the weight of memory and gratitude. The air smelled of soil, of smoke, of hope. They had outlived the storm. Now they would learn to live. Fires burned again, not as defense, but as light for celebration. Flames reflected in faces full of peace. Hands that once fought for survival now built, carving wood, shaping stone, weaving cloth. They were no longer ruled by fear. dusk, smoke curled softly into the sky. Drums echoed through the valley, steady, like a heartbeat returning after silence. Stories rose with the sound. Stories of beasts and cold, of courage and flame. Children listened wide-eyed as elders spoke, their voices blending with the music of the wind. They painted not only beasts, but themselves. Figures of mothers and children, hunters and singers, drawn in red, black, and gold. Symbols became words, and words became memory. They named the world around them: river, tree, sky, fire. And in naming, they found belonging. Night fell, and stars stretched wide and endless. The tribe gathered near the fire. An elder's voice rose, calm and strong. Remember the ice. Remember the fire. Both made us who we are. The tribe listened, and in the crackling flame they heard the echo of every ancestor who had carried the ember through the dark. The cold had carved strength. The fire had taught faith. And together they had made humanity. Now they understood. To live was not merely to survive, but to remember, to build, to dream. At dawn, the sky turned to gold. Mountains shone, rivers shimmered. Birds rose in spirals of light. Children played beside the water. Mothers sang softly of life renewed. The tribe looked to the horizon and saw not danger, but promise. They were no longer wanderers in the cold. They were guardians of warmth. And when night came again, they did not fear it. They fed the flames, watched the shadows dance, and smiled. For they had learned the oldest truth. Even after the longest darkness, light always returns. The ice had tested them. The fire had shaped them. And from both was born a new world. A world where humankind stood not as prey, but as creators. This was not the end of struggle, but the beginning